Hello and welcome to the NASCAR News Zone, the show you take you for all the biggest stories in the world of stock car racing ahead of the Quaker State 400 this weekend around the Atlanta Motor Speedway in Georgia. This week, a NASCAR spotter has been fired for insulting remarks made about Mexico City on social media. Denny Hamlin has been named as the top seed for the in-season challenge, and we have an update regarding the Antitrust Lawsuit that is currently ongoing. All that and a whole lot more is coming up in today's show. And if you're watching on YouTube, skip to the timestamps in the video description below to see the story that you are most interested in. So, without further delay, let's dive in. So for the second time in a week, someone is in serious trouble for making less than nice remarks about Mexico, or at least in this case, specifically about Mexico City, the Mexican capital, after, of course, we went to Mexico just over a week ago for the first ever NASCAR Cup Series event around the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez. Now, of course, the other week we saw the controversy from Carson Hocevar, who was given a $50,000 fine for describing Mexico City as a toilets. Let's call it a toilet. That's a more polite way of putting it. Not very nice. Now, since then, he's apologized for it and said he was wrong about it. But a spotter has actually lost his job for something he said about Mexico City. Tab Boyd has been dismissed from his role following a controversial social media post about the series' first ever cup race in Mexico City. Boyd, who was the spotter for Ricky Stenhouse Jr. in the number 47 Chevrolet car, posted a since-deleted message expressing frustration with the trip south of the border. He said, and I quote, "I'm ready to go home. Screw this place. People can talk it up all they want. Can't even walk out the front door of the hotel without getting hustled and money snatched. In less than 5 minutes, good area, my rear end," he wrote. He didn't say rear end. He made a reference to a donkey there, if you catch my meaning. Hayek Motorsports unsurprisingly terminated Boyd's contract last week in response to this. Stenhouse addressed the situation ahead of the Pocono race weekend, confirming that Boyd's departure and the arrival of the new spotter Clayton Hughes. Stenhouse had the following to say about his now former spotter. He said, and I quote, "Obviously that's an unfortunate deal. The team let Tab Boyd go this week and we got Clayton Hughes to come and fill in. I've never worked with Clayton. Obviously I think the concern for me is trying to get on the same page as quickly as we can, knowing that, like you said, the schedule's coming up. Going to Atlanta next week could be very important race for our season, and trying to get us in the playoffs and put us in the right position." Stenhouse Jr. finished 27th in Mexico City and came in 30th place at Pocono on Sunday. So there you go, guys. Not really a surprise, not very professional at the end of the day. You can have your own opinions, no problem with that, but clearly that did not align with the company values. But yeah, your thoughts in the comments below, guys. Should he have been fired for his remarks or should he not have? I want to hear what you have to say. Interesting developments in the courtroom battles going on right now when it comes to NASCAR, as most of their teams are saying that sharing their financial information would be absolutely catastrophic. Why is this, and why could this be a reality? Well, I got a handy article here on the motorsportreports.com, as always, guys, to explain this situation, because there's always some drama going on away from the track when it comes to NASCAR, and this very much is it at the moment. The finances, the charter system, all that sort of stuff. I'll get into why exactly in this video for you guys here on the channel. So, attorneys representing 12 of NASCAR's 15 race teams argued in federal court on Tuesday that handing over their financial records to the sanctioning body would be absolutely devastating and could damage the sport's competitive integrity. The hearing, which is part of an ongoing antitrust case, highlighted a major divide between teams and NASCAR leadership as a bitter legal battle escalates. The legal fight stems from a discovery dispute in the broader antitrust lawsuit brought by 21XI Racing and Front Row Motorsport, the only two teams that declined to sign NASCAR's latest charter agreement last September. The other 13 teams signed, but only Cowlick Racing has complied with NASCAR's subpoena, demanding demanding detailed financial documentation. The teams opposing the disclosure argued that revealing sensitive data such as sponsorship deals, driver salaries, and internal expenditures would expose them to significant risk. It would be absolutely devastating to these race teams if their competitors were able to find out sponsorships on their cars, driver salaries, and all revenue streams, said Adam Ross, attorney for the teams. It cannot make its way into the public realm. Ross also said that NASCAR's request, which includes 11 years of financials, emails, and even costs relating to Hendrick Motorsports' Garage 56 Le Mans project and Kyle Larson's double duty in the 500 and also the Coca-Cola 600, goes far beyond what is reasonable. NASCAR has gone a step too far, he said. NASCAR defended the request though, saying it needs the data to determine whether the current charter system is financially sustainable for teams, a key issue in the antitrust case. The organisation promised to redact identifiable information, but team lawyers pushed back, arguing that it would still be easy to trace contracts back to specific teams. Judge Kenneth Bell, overseeing the case in the U.S. District Court for the Western District of North Carolina, appeared frustrated by both sides. "I am amazed at the effort going into burning this house down over everybody's heads," he said, before promising a ruling soon and reaffirming his commitment to overseeing the scheduled December trial. The teams also expressed concerns about being dragged into a fight they didn't initiate. This is the opposite of what they want. All the teams are torn to pieces that NASCAR wants to disclose this information, and they don't want to be upset at NASCAR. And they don't want to upset NASCAR, Ross told the court. The current dispute is the latest flashpoint in a broader disagreement over the future of NASCAR's business model. For years, teams have complained that the sport is not financially viable under the existing charter system. Talks aimed at reforming it collapsed last year, prompting 21XI Racing, who are co-owned by Michael Jordan and current NASCAR Cup Series driver Denny Hamlin, and Front Row Motorsports to take legal action instead. Charters, which is NASCAR's version of a franchise agreement, guarantee entry to Cup Series races and a share of the sport's revenue. However, they currently lack permanence and can be revoked, adding to team concerns over the long-term investment and stability of the sport. Bell, while questioning NASCAR's insistence on granular data, asked, "Why is it not enough to know it costs X to run a car?" He appeared unconvinced that full financial transparency was necessary for NASCAR to understand the viability of issues being debated. Just a day before the hearing, Bell refused to dismiss the team's notion to throw out NASCAR's countersuit, one that accuses Jordan's longtime business manager Curtis Polk of cartel-like tactics during the charter negotiations. That claim adds further complexity to what is already shaping up to be one of the most consequential legal disputes in NASCAR's modern era. A final ruling on the disclosure dispute is expected soon, with both sides bracing for a December showdown in court. I just exhaled there because it is complicated to say the very least, but yeah. Basically, it's a dispute and the judge is going to say who is right and who is wrong, whether NASCAR is right to be able to subpoena this information from the teams or whether it is unethical to do that because of obviously the repercussions of other teams knowing other teams' financial information, and therefore there's going to be all kinds of things. You know, drivers might say, for example, you know, this guy's being paid this, I'm worth at least that, you need to up my pay. And that could also go for any team personnel as well. It could very much cause a lot of problems. There's a reason why you don't talk to your co-workers about how much you make, what your salary is, what your benefits are. You don't talk about that sort of stuff because it can very much start a bit of a rebellion, a bit of a mutiny, a bit of a protest, for lack of a better term. So yeah, I can understand why the teams are concerned, but I also get that NASCAR wants to get that information to get a more accurate picture of how much it costs to actually run a team and run a car. But shouldn't NASCAR know that already? I want to hear what you guys have to say about that. Denny Hamlin will enter NASCAR's first ever in-season challenge as the top seed, leading a 32 driver field in the new single elimination competition that begins next week at Atlanta's Motor Speedway. The format is part of NASCAR's fresh media partnership with TNT, and it features a 5-race bracket-style tournament. A $1 million payout awaits the eventual winner, which is the same amount you get for winning the All-Star race as well. So it's a big purse to actually try and win. The final seedings were determined based upon the performances in Michigan, Mexico City and Pocono, the 3 most recent rounds in the Cup Series Championship, which has seen Denny Hamlin get all the way up to 3rd overall in the driver's standings thanks to a few standout results. Hamlin becomes the first seed in this format thanks to his incredible results in recent times, such as, of course, his first place in Michigan and a second place at Pocono last weekend. And the whole point of this seeding is to have the drivers competing in direct matchups and progressing through a structured model after the NCAA basketball tournaments. Drivers will compete in a direct matchup with their opponent, progressing through a structured model after the NCAA basketball tournaments. So that means that Hamlin's first round opponent is 32nd seed Ty Dillon. Now, seeding is of course something you see quite a bit when it comes to other sports such as tennis. Basically, it ensures that in theory you get the best possible matchup in the final. So you have the first seed on one side of the bracket and the second on the other, third on one, fourth on the other, etc. Basically rewards people for better form. And in this case, of course, it means that Hamlin takes on the 32nd seed, whereas if you are the 10th seed, you would take on a 23rd seed, something like that. So for those wondering as well, the second seed is Chase Briscoe after getting his win last time out at Pocono. Chris Buescher is in third, Christopher Bell is in fourth, and Chase Elliott is at the 5th seed for this tournament. So in terms of what we're going to be seeing from NASCAR, it's not really going to change. The races are still going to run as normal. It's not going to be a 32 car field in Atlanta, then a 16 at Chicago or anything like that. Nothing like that. It's just going to be something that runs basically alongside where this competition eliminates certain drivers. They'll still compete in all the Cup Series events. It just means that if they don't beat the rival that they are put against in a certain race, then they will be eliminated from it and not be eligible for that $1 million prize fund. So essentially what it means is that there'll be 32 drivers competing at Atlanta in this, 16 for Chicago, 8 at Sonoma, 4 at Dover, and the final showdown for this will take place at the IMS, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, for the Brickyard 400. So I think it's a nice little thing to add a bit more excitement into what can be a bit of a mid-season lull for NASCAR around this summer period. But guys, let us know your thoughts on it in the comments below. Is this the kind of thing that we need to have in NASCAR to try and attract a younger audience to the sport, to give it a more global outreach? I want to hear what you have to say in the comments below as always. NASCAR's television coverage has been a very controversial topic, to say the very least. Unlike a lot of sports here in the UK and most of the rest of the world, for example, you don't get one broadcaster doing the entire sport for the whole year. You instead get several broadcasters who get certain parts of the season. And the newest broadcaster to join this is Prime Video, Amazon's streaming service. But the decision to give Prime some big races such as the Coke 600 this year has been a very controversial topic in NASCAR, to say the very least. I see it in my comments all the time, people complaining about Prime Video's coverage. But why? What is wrong with them? What are they doing wrong? Let's have a look at what's been said here, guys. Got the full story here for you on the channel as always. So NASCAR's decision to stream the 2025 Coca-Cola 600 exclusively on Amazon Prime Video has sparked frustration among a core segment of its fan base. For the first time in the sport's history, a top-tier Cup Series race required a paid streaming subscription, a major shift from the free-to-air and cable broadcast that fans have relied on for decades. Although the broadcast quality earned praise and drew 2.7 million viewers, the move alienated many older, loyal supporters. A significant number of them either couldn't navigate streaming platforms or couldn't justify another monthly fee. Even NASCAR President Steve Phelps laid out a clear message defending the strategy. He said, and I quote, "Streaming is important, it's here to stay, and we think that Amazon Prime is a terrific partner for us to be with. And you're kind of defined by the company you keep, right? The NFL, NBA, ourselves, that is a good agency for us. I think they are going to bring a bright, fresh approach, which they certainly did with Thursday Night Football in the NFL, and I think that it will drive a slightly younger audience for us, which is not a bad thing either. Their aim is clear going off of this, modernise the sport and connect with younger fans, but the cost of that move has not gone unnoticed, of course. Now, NASCAR is struggling to get a younger audience. Younger motorsport fans are very much turning off of NASCAR. They don't like the coverage. I hear this all the time from you guys over in the States. So therefore, going to something that is more modern in the terms of Amazon Prime. I mean, most people my age have that service here in the UK. It's very popular, not least, of course, because the delivery options. You get the video kind of stapled onto the side of that, so it's very much something that a lot of people have. But older people in general, which are making up the vast majority of NASCAR fans. They're not happy about this. And that was backed up in the viewing figures as well. Reports showed that nearly 750,000 fans aged 55 and up did not watch the Coke 600 on Prime, purely because it was on Prime. If it was on another broadcaster like Fox, they would have done so, like they did for the rest of the season. And speaking of Fox Sports as well, Michael Mulvihill summed this up very bluntly as well. It's easy to look younger when you lose 5 older people for every 1 younger viewer you gain. That is quite harsh to say the very least, but it is achieving what they want to look like. But in terms of their viewing figures, it could well hurt them. But guys, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Where should NASCAR be broadcast on? Is streaming the future? Is cable TV what they're doing now and have done for so long? Is that the future? I want to hear what you have to say on this, as always. Interesting story here regarding Chase Elliott, because Carl Edwards, former NASCAR driver, has warned him over playoff danger. Now you look at the standings and you look and you think, he's in 5th place overall in the driver's standings. He's not really got too much to worry about, but of course, he hasn't managed to win a race yet. Win and you're in, you don't, and you could well be out. We saw Martin Truex Jr. only just make it through to the playoffs last season without getting a victory. But why is Edwards warning Elliott? Well, I got everything you need to know here, guys. I got an article on the motorsportreports.com. I'm going to read out the main highlights for you here on this video. Chase Elliott's solid form in the 2025 NASCAR Cup Series hasn't included a trip to victory lane yet, and that could be a serious problem. Although the Hendricks Motorsports driver sits in 5th in the overall standings, NASCAR's playoff format prioritizes race winners, like I explained earlier. Should 16 different drivers win races before the regular season ends, Elliott's winless run could leave him outside of the playoffs. NASCAR veteran Carl Edwards, who narrowly missed out on a cup title during his career, offered a word of caution. He's a winner, he's a champion, he wants to be in victory lane, Edwards said. It's so tough because consistency in the history of the sport is so important, but right now, as we've talked about the cut line of 160 points, that may not be enough. Now, Elliott has produced some great results this season, with 9 top 10 finishes so far, including back-to-back top 5s in Mexico City and Pocono in the previous 2 rounds to raise him even higher in the standings. But he's not hiding from the fact he's not managed to step on the top step of the podium just yet. And of course, he could well have won last time out in Pocono. He said, "I think so," when referring to the potential victory at Pocono. "I feel like we were just right there, one little adjustment away from being right with Ryan Blaney and Denny Hamlin. I feel like it's all well within reach. We've just got to piece it together at the same time. It's hard to be mad about top 5s. It's not what we were after, but we are certainly looking for more." So at last count, I believe there are 10 drivers who have won a race in the Cup Series so far. So that means there are 6 spots still available to people who haven't won a race. Elliott, of course, being the highest of those. He's up in 5th in the standings overall. And the next highest after that is Tyler Reddick in 7th, the next one that has actually not managed to win a race yet. So it's not quite panic stations just yet. That's an ever-shrinking list of spots available for it. But yeah, let me know what you think about this in the comments below, guys. Should Elliott be concerned? Should he not? I want to hear what you have to say. How much is a team that's got NASCAR chartered entries actually worth? Well, if you're going off the recent purchase of Rick Ware Racing that TJ Putcher has recently done, you'd say that it has to be worth at least $75 million, because that's what he's actually paid for it. That is a lot of money by anybody's standards. But what's happened here, guys? Well, I'll just go into it quickly here on the channel as always, guys. A full article over on the motorsportreports.com if you want to see more about this, but I'll quickly go over the main points here for you guys. So TJ Putcher, who is of course one of the original founders of Spire Motorsports, has entered into an agreement to purchase Rick Ware Racing and is making a bold return to the NASCAR Cup Series because he believes the current charters are significantly undervalued. When speaking to the Associated Press, Putcher confirmed the acquisition and said the following, and I quote, "I am bullish on wanting to build a 3-car team. I believe in the Franz family and the direction of the sport, and I want the rest of the shareholders in the industry to know that I believe the charters are worth $75 million or more." End quote. Putcher and Jeff Dickerson originally bought the charter from Furniture Row Racing for $6 million back in 2018 after failing to find a buyer for team owner Barney Visser. That move helped reignite the charter market, and recent charters, including those from the closure of Stewart-Haas Racing, have reportedly sold for around $30 million. Although Butcher sold his Spire stake last year to TWG Motorsports CEO Dan Tauris, he remained active in the sport through consulting roles, including with RWR and Legacy Motor Club, and also closely followed NASCAR's charter-related court battles, which, again, we've brought you something about that today, you guys, as well on the channel, so check it out if you've not already. Many big updates when it comes to that at the moment. As part of his new deal, he will retain Rick Ware as a partner, keep Cody Ware in the number 51 Ford, and maintain all current employees. So, from the ground level, nothing's really changing. It's just the person who is paying the bills. Ware's second charter, currently leased to RFK Racing, has also been the subject of legal contention within the Legacy Motor Club. Butcher said of the situation, "If anybody deserves a pass, it's Jimmy, and if he wants to sit down and talk about it like men, I entertain the conversation." He added that, "I don't think that Jimmy has all the facts. He doesn't understand the deal we had, and they tried to humiliate Rick publicly. We don't do business that way." So we'll see what happens there with that one. So there you go, guys. Very much a big change when it comes to the ownership of one of the teams on the NASCAR grid. 2 chartered entries there as well, of course. So $75 million bucks. That is a huge deal, really, when it comes to that. But let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below, guys. Are these chartered entries worth more than $75 million? Let's see. Maybe he's just trying to big up his asset there. Who knows when it comes to that? Interesting quote here from Denny Hamlin, who has claimed that Connor Zilisch was more ready for the NASCAR Cup Series coming into 2025 than Shane Van Gisbergen. Now, SVG, of course, won his first race of the season in Mexico City, and some people, I believe Richard Petty, the king as well, questioning whether the win-and-you're-in system for the playoffs should be a thing, based upon the fact that he's well down in the standings, but more than likely will still make the playoffs. Now, that's a separate discussion for another time, but the 18-year-old Connor Zilisch, who has only competed in a couple of Cup Series races this season, those 2 races being at the Circuit of the Americas in Austin, Texas, and also the Coke 600 around Charlotte, he's argued that he was actually more prepared than SVG. But let's have a look at what he's actually said here, because that sounds like quite a inflammatory comment, to put it very nicely. Which, let's be real here, is not exactly out of character for Denny Hamlin, but let's have a look at what he said here. So Hamlin was speaking on the Actions Detrimental podcast and said, quote, "I would say that he, Connor Zilisch, is more prepared for the Cup than SVG, Shane Van Gisbergen, was entering this season." Now, Zilisch has been flying this season in the Xfinity Series, and he got his first oval victory in that category at Pocono this past weekend. And that is something that SVG was never able to do during his Xfinity career. Of course, this being SVG's first full-time season in the Cup Series. He had made appearances before in the Cup Series on a semi-regular basis, usually trying to focus on the road courses, where, of course, he did manage to win at Chicago a couple of seasons ago. And we'll be going there very soon as well, so he could well be in for another victory very soon. Now, the reasoning for Hamlin's assessment of this is basically down to their road course backgrounds. Now, the reason for Hamlin's assessment of these 2 drivers is basically down to their oval results. Both are great around road courses, but Zilisch has actually managed to get a victory around an oval. Like I said, unlike SVG, he's never managed to do that. In fact, Shane really does seem to struggle around ovals, relatively speaking. He had a few spins at Pocono last weekend, for example, around the tricky triangle. But he's not downplaying how much of a challenge it will be for Zilisch when he does eventually join the Cup Series full-time. I imagine he'll do that next season with how he's going at the moment. Hamlin said about this, winning an oval race in the Xfinity Series and then winning an oval race in the Cup, it's such a huge jump. But if there's ever a prospect that's going to be able to do it, I think that Connor is showing enough to be able to do that. And indeed, he's already done well around road courses in the Cup Series. He was running in the top 10 around the Circuit of the Americas before a collision with Daniel Suarez finished his day. And at Charlotte, around the longest Cup Series race around an oval on the calendar, he managed to finish in 23rd, which is no mean feat at all. Remember, drivers like Kyle Larson were spinning off during that one, albeit, of course, he did do the Indy 500 early in the day. But my point is, that's a very difficult race. But Hamlin did praise the fact that Shane Van Gisbergen is getting better around ovals. He said he's proven that he's getting better as he goes to track for the second time. He's going to get better at that as well. He's going to continue to progress. But he did add that Connor would perform maybe not as good as SVG on road courses right now, but maybe better at ovals. But SVG has said basically the reason why he's been struggling around ovals is the fact there's such little run time, there's such little experience for drivers, even, in general, how experienced he is. He's a very experienced driver and successful driver in other series, and indeed NASCAR. He's managed to win a couple races. But he said the lack of practice time, the lack of testing time around ovals is actually really hurting him. He said it's so difficult when you only have 15 to 20 minutes of practice, then you're straight into qualifying, which I can sympathise with. But yeah, guys, what do you think? How good will Zilisch be when he eventually does make it to the Cup Series? It's only a matter of time, really, at this point. It's going to happen. But I want to hear what you have to say about this in the comments below, as always, guys. Like, share, comment, subscribe if you want to see much more like this. And like I said, full articles about NASCAR news and reviews and everything like that, all over on the motorsportreports.com. So check that website out if you haven't already.